Hello guys, and welcome to End All Wars with our Eastern on Top playthrough. In the last episode, we had just finished up our turn and we were getting ready to go into the next one. Well, here we are in the turn results. One thing I said I might do that I wasn't sure about is sending all the units that had previously invaded the southern portion of Eastern Prussia. They have recovered for the most part. I haven't really bolstered them as I have other forces, but they've recovered. And I decided to send them to Kolo to kind of ward off any German push into Poland, since the Germans seem to be redirecting their energy from Eastern Prussia. Well, here we are. They did indeed redirect their energy with not just one, but two armies. The infamous von Hindenburg is even here. Just a moment ago, he was up here. He took the rails all the way down south to go to Kolo. He's not there right now, but he's close enough that he could probably cause some problems for us. Well, at the start of this battle, we outnumbered these enemies 2-1. They outcommand us by a long shot. They have 8 artillery guns and 8 infantry units. We have 12 artillery guns, 8 cavalry, and 34 infantry units. The AI is suggesting that I do a full-out infantry assault on these enemies. Now, normally I'd agree, in a lot of instances, but their power is half of mine, and I'm expecting them to get reinforcements. Quite frankly, I think I'm going to tone this one down to a wave assault to try to avoid any unnecessary casualties, because I think it's very likely that von Hindenburg shows up and ruins my whole plan. And I don't want them to be on a suicidal infantry assault if that ends up being the case. So, what do we have here? A Russian victory, but honestly, barely. Look at this. Our plan, first and foremost, failed on round 2 because our commander's garbage. You know, I debate over what plans I should use in this game, but you need a good commander to actually carry out plans. So in almost every instance, my plans end up failing anyway, and we just go into a balanced deployment. They went with an envelop flank plan, which is interesting. It may have countered an infantry assault. Regardless, it doesn't look like there was any countering that actually happened, and we fought with a balanced deployment for most of it. Even with inferior commanders and a balanced deployment, we can see the losses were actually pretty even. We lost 6 guns, 32 cavalry. They lost none of either. But we lost 26,303 infantry, and they lost 27,060. These are near identical losses, and as you see, it's against von Hindenburg. He did get involved, just as I expected. These losses are insane. 26,000 on mine, 27 on theirs. In the grand scheme of things, this is 10% or more of all the losses I've suffered this entire campaign so far in one battle. Thankfully, this is also slightly less than 10% of this entire force. Von Hindenburg arrived with only 109,000 infantry to my 274,000. Cavalry and gun numbers aside, this is a quarter of his force. So this is a much better result for us than them, which is another reason this would be a Russian victory. This could have been better, but our units did not have time to get entrenched, namely. So this could have gone better, but it could have gone a lot worse. Moving along, another battle for Rara Ruska. Looks like... yeah, so more Austrians have arrived in Rara Ruska. They are not content with letting me stay here. Good thing I haven't gone on the offensive here. Currently, we outnumbered them almost 3-1, not quite, a little over 2-1. They have 16 infantry units and 10 artillery. We have 38 infantry, 14 artillery, and also 5 cavalry. I notice the enemies really lack cavalry that we go up against. And I have pumped out actually a lot of extra cavalry since the start of the game. I don't know why he's showing this like he's in the attack. He was never at any point in the attack. They're recommending I do an infantry assault. Once again, I'm going to have to disagree. Not just because this isn't just, like a weak position that we can overrun with how much artillery they have, with how much infantry they have, but there's more units nearby. There's a whole nother army corps nearby, and I know they'll reinforce. They always do. So, of course, I don't want to take any more risk than is required, and the wave assault is really just a toned down version of the infantry assault. So, but it's also taking advantage of our infantry advantage, of course. But let's go with the wave assault and see how this goes. Ooh, you could just see when the others showed up. Okay, this one went a lot better. So, as per usual, our plan failed anyway, because our commanders suck as the Eastern Entente. They're garbage. Well, at least our Russian commanders suck. Our Serbian commanders are great. But the Austrian commander failed as well, and there was a lot of them, and he was a lot better than we were. Oh yeah. Look at these stats, and compare them to these stats. Now, we lost a lot, especially on top of what we lost already this turn. This is probably one of the, if not the bloodiest turn in the game for us, the Eastern Entente, so far. We just lost another 13,000 men, another 97 cavalry, and another 18 guns. But they lost another 30 guns, more than we lost, another 162 guns, more than we lost, and 23,626 men. That is like twice the amount of infantry we lost. This is a much better result for us, and we still had the numerical advantage here, as you can see. I'm noticing a trend. I'm noticing the Russians have big numerical advantages in infantry, but they lack in other locations. But this is good for us, because it means that these losses will affect us less. Go ahead and move along. Also, one thing to note, you see my rail capacity here is red. Anytime I go under 200, I'm basically making it so that I don't get all the rail capacity for my supplies moving things around as I really should / could be getting during that turn, which can be problematic. You get a minimum amount of transport, at least if you have at least 60. But I put a lot of plans into motion this turn. I moved a lot of armies by rail and a lot of smaller units by rail as well, which is why this is under 200 when it has a max of 600. So I am taking into account supplies. I do keep track of the resources my units have, but there's only so much I can do on turns where I want to move stuff around. At the very least, we just spent all of winter sitting around doing absolutely nothing. Over here, this fucking stupid-ass signals regiment, which is literally nothing, is just here pillaging our town landscape for supplies. But it's surely being attrited away at. If I tried to engage it with an army, it would just run away anyways. The shitty part. Or, we might catch it, but more than likely it would just run away. I could try to put this militia on the offense to see if it catches the signals regiment, and hopefully that would do something. But oh my god, look at the map. You see the winter is going away. Okay, so I said I hoped that it would be gone by this turn. It's not gone, but it's going away, and you can very much see the old colors returning. By next turn, it should be a lot better. But for example, Poland and almost all of Eastern Prussia, all of it, is now more temperate and easier to move around through. So that's awesome. And we have 526 rail capacity. That's good. Okay. A lot of stuff has happened. Let's check these events. So Anthony Fokker, Anton Hermann Gerard Anthony Fokker, was a Dutch aviation pioneer and an aircraft manufacturer. He is most famous for the fighter aircraft he produced in Germany during the First World War, such as the Eindecker monoplanes, the Fokker triplane, and the Fokker D-7. So it looks like the Central Powers spent 250 money, and they gained 75 points towards aviation research. Oh my god. However, it looks like it even carried over, yeah. Does it carry over? How much do you gain? You gain 40. Okay, so here, this definitely does not carry over. I know that for a fact. But it looks like a lot of the AI are spending money on the researchers because they're all getting ahead of me. The Western Entente and the Central Powers. The Central Powers have just upgraded into chemical warfare, infantry research, aviation research, all sorts of things. I am potentially harming myself by not rushing the research. But the thing is, look, it's all at 90% anyway. In like one turn or two, I'll have it all to level 2 anyway. I was planning on waiting till then, and then spending an assload of money on research once, once that's gone through. To take 20 engagement points, which I have, and about like 1,000 state funds. So maybe not all at once, but successively, so that I get all 40% and I'm not wasting anything. You could tell when they waste stuff because they end up at 0% when they've just gone from like 70 or 80 to 0. So for now, for a turn, they're ahead. But they won't stay that way for long. Hopefully we'll get the advantage in the long run. One thing to keep track of here, though, is Central Powers is currently beating both of us in tech. The Western Entente has gotten to chemical warfare and has upgraded their infantry. But the artillery of the Central Powers has been upgraded. So they now have trench mortars. That's potentially scary. The fighters are cool, but fighters don't mean that much in World War I. Let's see what the next event is. Georg Muller, a German artillery officer. Oh my god. Great influence in the development of modern artillery tactics. Emphasized fire and depth throughout enemy positions. As support included an accurate creeping barrage for advancing infantry. 250 money, 75. So what this sounds like is that the Central Powers have the same events we have to upgrade our tech, but instead of how we gain 40 points for our 250 money spent, they're gaining 75. It also looks like theirs carries over into the next level. It seems that way, because I don't know how else they'd have 30% right now. So they've activated a lot of these. They just spent a whole lot of money. It's weird. It's weird that they get more, but I guess they need advantages like this, seeing as that they're outnumbered and outgunned, essentially. The Entente landings at Dardanelles. British and French forces land at the Ced-al-Bahr and Kum-Kale, the two tips of the Dardanelles entrance. The goal is to capture the heights commanding the straits and seize Gallipoli, I think I know where that is, allowing future unimpaired naval movement through the straits, the Sea of Marmara, and onwards to Constantinople. Success could well knock the Ottomans out of the war. In real life, I believe this was a huge historical failure. Like, one of the worst things the Entente did in the entire war. And I'm trying to find it. It was somewhere around here. Okay, wait, no, I think I found it. So, this right here, I don't know who this belonged to originally, but it seems to have been conquered by the Western Entente, probably granted to them by an event. Might have been Greek, might have been Ottoman, probably Ottoman. And from here, an event invasion was staged into the Ced-al-Bahr and the Kum-Kale, which, as we can see, both of these locations are now under siege. Now this scares me. It scares me that the AI is trusted right now with invading these two locations. Especially because, number one, I'm pretty confident this was a historical failure and that this didn't work. And what this means is that precious Western Entente manpower, conscripts, are probably about to be lost over here. Because there's a good chance their little invasion here could just fail. Very likely, in fact, that will happen. And the Central Powers can just slaughter all sorts of shit. Speaking of losses, by the way, let's take a look. So the Central Powers' land combat power compared to ours has actually gone up. But this might be because of our massive losses compared to theirs. We had a good KDR, but they have way more forces than we do. That being said, our total losses are up to 261,500. This has gone up by almost 40,000 in one turn. 30 to 35,000. Western Entente is at 585,000. This has gone up by, I think, 60,000, 40,000, something like that in a turn. And the Central Powers are at 957,000 losses. This feels like it's gone up 100,000. It feels like it. Which if it has, it doesn't explain why they're still so strong looking. Maybe the Ottomans got some free soldiers as well from this event. And the only reason for the event is just to open another historical front. Well, either way, I don't really know the ins and outs of how the game is handling all this, but I certainly wish the Western Entente the best of luck with this invasion. Because the less I have to focus on the Ottomans, the better. Again, that's my goal. I'm trying to hold them off with one army group, which was done historically. This is a historical move. While I hope that the Western Entente can essentially do the rest for me. And I look around the world to see how well they're doing. Still besieging in China. Not a lot of progress anywhere that I can see. Portugal, as a reminder, has recently joined the war on our side. And also, the national morale problem is continuing. If we go ahead and take a look at the atlas for this, we can see we are down another national morale point. The Central Powers' national morale is still going down. The Western Entente has gone down one, but they're still kind of holding their own. They must be winning some good battles. And really, they must be, considering, well, they're not anymore, but they did have forces over here in Metz just a turn or so ago. And they had recaptured St. Mihiel. Well, it looks like that force may have fallen back or been defeated, because they're no longer in control of these areas. So one side effect of how last turn the Central Powers did their best to get Bulgaria to join them is that they also gave some alignment towards Serbia. And now Serbia is already part of the Eastern Entente because they went with their historical war plan. Now, how that actually affected them was it got rid of all their rebel alignments. You can see now they're down to 1%, whereas I'm at 4%. France is at, 23%. You know, the UK is at 4%. Germany's at 4%. Anyone that hasn't been affected by some other circumstance is at 4%. What is doing this to France, though? Like, what have you done? Is it printing? What have you done that has done this to you? Jesus Christ, 23 fucking %. And Austria over here at 21%. I've also just noticed that the Swiss have actually been crippled because they lost their capital at one point. I didn't even think of that, because I've never experienced losing a capital in this game. But where would that be? What location is their capital? It doesn't stand out, whatever it is. I guess it's one of these few towns that have been taken. The countrysides around a lot of these towns that have been taken are actually returning back to Swiss control. I really wish I could see the map on the other side of things, but with the kinds of bugs I've experienced with this game already, I kind of don't want to load up the other side because I don't want to risk fucking anything up. Just because I plan to spend a lot of money on research very soon, I'm going to sit on my money this turn because I know I'm going to need like 1,000 funds, and I'm not even close to that. So I'm just going to sit on my money and not recruit anything more this turn. And as for what I'm going to do, the answer is a whole lot of nothing with one exception. So up north of Eastern Prussia, it's still a harsh winter, so I don't want to move yet. However, we took Gumbinnen without a fight, really. So I'm going to take these units, which are still doing pretty well. Their cohesion is basically full. And we're going to run over to Wehlau, which, you know, hey, flashback, we've done this already at the beginning of the game. And we're going to try to capture it. Hopefully cutting off every unit to the north of here completely from their supply lines. Now, they do have a harbor here. And a harbor can provide supply. But they are cut off from a good amount of their supply. It can only arrive navally at that point, which I know the Germans can definitely do, but I just figure it helps. Plus, if they try to escape the area, they have to come down through here. So whatever's up here, whatever's hidden in here, you know, whatever they have, will essentially be cut off completely from returning back to Germany. Therefore, if I just left these units at Wehlau, and then proceeded to march west directly and conquer all this with my HQ and his associated corps, we could essentially completely kill off every German north of Wehlau. So I'd say that's a pretty good plan, a better plan than just trying to bum rush it down to Lotsen anyway. A little bit of German encirclement going on, a little bit of World War II, am I right? Now, down in here, of course, we have von Hindenburg, who's shown his ugly face. problem with defending a lot of this area is it's clear. It's muddy right now, which assists us as the defenders, but it's still clear. It's not the best terrain to be defending. If we take a look, we'll see our forces, at least in terms of permanent damage, are not really too bothered by the looks of it. They lost men, yes, but no permanent losses that would be difficult to replace, which is good. That means they can continue to sit here and defend. The one that suffered the most seems to be this corps. Radkovich's corps seems to have suffered the most. Well, he suffered the most permanent damage, this Armsky corps, but Radskovich seems to have suffered the most cohesion loss. Von Hindenburg has suffered at least some losses, we can see, and there's a lot more here than von Hindenburg if you look under the also here. Quite frankly, I'm surprised they don't technically outnumber us. But you know what probably happened? Our numbers were really high during that battle. I didn't actually check, but I think the defenders of Lodz may have showed up. Where's that battle? I need to see that again. No? No, I don't think they did. No. Huh. Yeah, I don't know exactly what did it, but I don't see any of the commanders here, or any of the forces here, necessarily present in that. Maybe they were. These guys don't have a marine group, but there was a marine group present in that battle, I think. Yes, the Morosky Brigade. Okay. And see, he's here, though. So, by the looks of it, at least some of the defenders of Lodz did show up to help defend in Kolo, which is really good. That means we're actually at a huge advantage. I'm correct. The defenders of Kolo are outnumbered. But by the looks of it, not a lot, but at least some of the forces from Lodz and Kolo are capable of reinforcing each other. And so long as I maintain these two strong points of defense in Western Poland, I don't think they're really going to get past me. I mean, they could just take this other road and go over here. But I mean, I'd see them doing that. I could respond to that. Not to mention there's a semi-well-defended fortification over here that they'd have to cross a river to get to. And they seem to have their eyes on these locations in Western Poland, which is smart, you know, think about your supply lines. Of course, I should think about my supply lines right now, but it's okay. I have Poland fairly covered with 3 separate army groups. So long as they just focus on these units, we're defended. Now, technically, due to the weather, I could go on the offensive here with the defense force of Lodz. But now that I know the defense force of Lodz is also helping to defend Kolo and helping drive off von Hindenburg, now that the Germans are putting more of an emphasis on fighting me instead of the Western Entente, unfortunately, which, thank God, the Western Entente's now fighting the Ottomans. I need all the help I can get, being the weaker of the two Ententes. It's like I need to leave them here to ensure that this army group, this fairly unreinforced army group that has mainly been wandering around for half the game, doesn't fall. Kolo's not a big deal, but the amount of losses that could be sustained in these battles, especially if it goes well or poorly for us rather than simply neutral, is worth keeping these units around here for and holding this front line, especially while we have other movements we're doing and we're progressing in our war at the very least. After all, their national morale is dripping as far as ours is anyway, and so long as theirs is falling faster by any means with the help of the Western Entente, so long as we can keep ours up high, then things look pretty good for us. Down in Serbia, I'm going to be moving one of the 2 army corps that have been sitting at Zvornik this whole time up north to reclaim Loznica from the Central Powers. I believe that from one tile apart they can reinforce each other anyway. I figured I'd do this while it's undefended. We're still moving a field artillery piece down to this army corps right here, which could definitely use it, that's for certain. There's this pretty much militia-only army corps that I've inadvertently formed, and I'm going to be sending that down here to Nish, which I believe is the most defensible point against a potential Bulgarian invasion. Now, right here, you could say, like, oh, well, this is where the railroad goes. There's a town right here. Why don't you defend here? Well, the thing is, they could just walk right into it. There's a river crossing here and leading here. So this is a very critical location for me, I feel like. I feel this is a pretty important location to hold because it's an island, you know? If I lost it, it's hard to get it back. If they want to attack it, they have to try pretty hard. And there's a city here with a depot. A level 6 city instead of a level 2 city. That depot really helps. It means we'll stay in supply. And my goal, my hope, is that I can simply hunker down here and they won't be able to get past me. They could come from the north, but the AI is not that smart, so I'm not counting on them to think that far ahead and think of an alternate route, especially one off the course of a railroad. And this isn't even considering a Romanian invasion, of course. The Bulgarians could also attack from the south. I'm looking at where their rail line is and where they're most likely to travel. And even if they came from the south, because of all the mountains and the lack of roads, every road leads to Niche. Niche? Whatever you call this. Every road just kind of leads here. So I'm thinking of just putting whatever I can here. Up north in the middle of Austria, or the eastern part of Austria, it's still harsh winter, so I'm not going to really do anything there. Same right here, we're just barely in the harsh weather, so I'm not going to move here. We're going to sit down, hunker down, and stay in our level 2 entrenchments here at Rawa Ruska and let them keep throwing bodies at us because, hey, the fights here seem to benefit us. Let me see if I can find that last one we just did. Because it was at Rawa Ruska. Yeah, dude, we outnumbered them with all the troops they had here. We still outnumbered them in every way except for artillery. I need to really make some more artillery sooner or later. Even if it's just field guns, it could be incredibly helpful. But that's part of why I've been making signals and other things like that, so that I can squeeze more artillery into my army corps. And finally, I'm doing some weird shit over here now that the winter's gone. I'm taking this army group and I'm moving it south to Kiels? I don't know how to say it. But we're moving there with everyone that's activated, specifically. Which would be the leader of the army group, one of the corps, and another one of the corps, and I think that's it, yeah. So the leader of the group and 2 corps. And it's a good amount of combat power, quite frankly. We have 800, 960 combat power in that. There's 2 deactivated corps. I'm moving the weakened one over here into these mountains, these hills, because I want him to reclaim this for us. He's within 1 hex. We should be able to reinforce him or have him reinforce us anyway. He's not going to get there in 1 turn regardless, which is why I'm not sending him south. I want to get here in 1 turn, and everyone else can get there in 8 days. But the ones that are deactivated will take 15 days. So the deactivated ones I'm sending elsewhere. Again, the more fucked up one, no cohesion to the east to secure these hills. It's no big threat, no big deal, but I want someone to secure it. And I don't want to have to move an entire army group to do it. The other one, the slightly stronger one, is going to go down the road over here. It's not actually down the road. It's more of across a plain, well, out of the forest, into a plain. And he's going to secure this, which is defended from the west by a little river pass, which is nice. And then the road leads east into Kiels. So my idea is we essentially move the army group south. We secure this. These 2 areas end up getting secured. We defend them from the city. And we hold our ground a little bit, probably, maybe. And then we regroup everyone, and then we move on from there. I don't know if we go right down into this fort, because this fort looks fairly defended. It would be quite the siege to take it. Reclaiming Poland is probably the first bet, but this is pushing up to the Austro-Hungarian border, coming in this direction. There's a bridge going right across here, after all, and the railroad connects here. So I'd say it's pretty important to retake this. I don't know about an actual push, until I've secured more. And with that, we have a nice full turn, and, yet again, a nice full episode. So I was wrong, we didn't get all the snow gone in this episode, but we did get a good amount of it gone, at least enough to go on some maneuvers, some encirclement maneuvers, some pushing forward, reclaiming things that were taken towards the beginning of the game. We're pushing into Austria in multiple directions. The Serbians are getting ready to fight for dear life against Bulgaria. We'll see whatever happens with Greece. Greece and Bulgaria are not too far apart right now. 92% for Bulgaria, 90% for Greece. They're about 2 turns apart in that case, unless we somehow have more luck pushing Greece towards us than Bulgaria with essential powers. Of course, that's not very likely, but all of that is to be seen in future episodes. Hey, this one was less buggy. That makes me happy. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. I hope you guys are enjoying the way the war is going. Here's a nice little overview of the map so you can see kind of the way things are. Who do you think is winning? Who would you say is winning this right now? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know how you think things are going to go in the turns to come now that the winter is ending and all the full offensives and mobilizations are going to resume. I'd love to hear what you think. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.